Welcome back to our Tridelphia YouTube Sabbath School lesson study. And we have an amazing lesson to study this morning. And we would like you to be a part of this lesson study. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send us a text message via YouTube on the chat box. And we will be glad to answer this question and share with the rest of our audience. Today I have the privilege of having Wayne Harris, a member of the Tridelphia Seventh-day Adventist Church, and he will be sharing with us this lesson study as well. Wayne, would you be willing to pray for us?
Most certainly.
Thank you.
Let's bow our heads. Father God, we come to you today just thanking you, Lord God, for the privilege to come to you. Lord, thank you for health, life, and strength, for keeping us, Lord God, through such a crazy week, Lord. But we prayed, you answered, and we're here for the purpose. Lord, we ask that you come and be with us here now at Tridelphia. May your spirit move all over this earth as people today, especially in this time, Lord, woke up this morning looking for truth, wanting answers, needing to know what's going on. So, Lord, let this be a day that we're instrumental in helping someone find truth. Forgive us and save us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. This was a beautiful lesson, wasn't it, Wayne?
Wasn't it, Pastor Sam?
Yes.
Interesting, Pastor Sam, when you came to me and said, we would do a lesson together. So what we did was we took out the lessons and we were just scrolling through them. And as soon as I saw that word, the hard way, it spoke directly to me because, admittedly, I am hard-headed, as most of us oftentimes can be. So the hard way, it must be something in there for me, Pastor Sam. Okay. So immediately that one spoke. We chose that one. Nice. And sure enough, it was a powerful lesson.
Yes, it was. And so we come back to Isaiah chapter 7, something we started off last week.
Back in Isaiah.
That has, again, a beautiful message telling us this promise that God is with us. Yes. And this name that we know well, Emmanuel, appears several times in chapter 7 and also in chapter 8.
Some clarification to who God is.
That's right.
Today, you all, I'm kind of getting in conversations. People drop that word God all the time, but let's be a little more specific. So maybe in this lesson, that's what part of the lesson was that I took from it. Okay. God said there's lots of gods. You can choose who you want to listen to, but specifically, there's a way that seems right. But which God is it? So let's talk about Emmanuel, Jehovah, the Creator. Amen. That God is the one I'm trying to follow. Amen. Right?
I like that you said, hey, how can we hear His voice? What's in a voice? What is it when we hear someone that we know well, that we know loves us? Does that build confidence, trust in us, or when we hear a voice that we don't recognize, all of a sudden there's just a different feel, right?
Relationship. Well, that's how the lesson started. That's right. And I don't know if you all read it this week, but this lesson started with a powerful study. Let's look at it. I'm going to read the paragraph to you. It's just that easy. The story says, at a burning building in New York City's Harlem, a blind girl was perched on a fourth-floor window. The firemen had become desperate. They couldn't fit the ladder truck between the buildings, and they couldn't get her to jump into a net, which she, of course, couldn't see. Could you imagine being there, Pastor?
I couldn't.
Standing on the edge of a building, you can't see anything, and somebody's telling you to jump.
No, I'm not going to jump.
The first thought that came to mind is, you ever had children? I remember trying to teach my children to swim. Oh, wow. And being in the pool, just 2 feet from them, and just holding your hands up, jump, and they're nervous. You almost get offended. After a little while, like, come on, this is Dad here. I'm not just some stranger. Would I let you die? It's only jump. And finally, when they do jump, it's a sense of accomplishment. And that, they really recognize me as Dad. I wouldn't let you drown right here. Come on, Yes. Isn't that real faith, though, for a blind girl? I think an example of true faith would be to go to a swimming pool in the dark. Climb up to the high dive, say a prayer, and just run out, take a big bounce, and do a double backflip, pike position, and don't even know if there's any water in the pool.
Oh, no.
Would that be faith? Because it says faith is what? The substance of things hoped for, but you can't see it. If you can see it, it wasn't faith. If you knew the answer, you wouldn't need to lean on the Lord. So this girl, perched on the edge of a building, she smells the smoke, she feels the heat, but I'm I'm not jumping. But the story says her father shows up.
That's right.
Calls out her name, I'm sure. That's daddy's voice. I recognize that voice.
Yes.
He tells her, when I count to 3, you jump. 1, 2, 3. And she jumped safety, knowing her father's voice. And so that's a bigger part of this lesson, any lesson.
That's right.
Do you recognize, well, have you had some time with your father to recognize what his voice would be? Then are you willing to follow that voice? Kind of another lesson in there, though, is she didn't listen to the voices of the other people.
That's right.
We don't have to listen to every voice. There's some voices we need to avoid listening to.
That's right.
And that's what it kind of brought us to Ahaz and this story we had today. Every voice isn't the voice.
That's right. And we find that Ahaz sadly was listening to all these other voices except the voice of God. And God was not giving up on Ahaz. He was coming to him. He was sending Isaiah and saying, Ahaz, look, this is what's going to happen. You don't have to worry about Assyria. You don't have to worry even about Israel and Syria, the Aramites. They're not going to do anything to you. They are in my hands. Don't have to worry about this problem. But for whatever reason, he was not listening to God. And we see the consequences of not listening to God. When we go to Sunday, it talks about this prophecy fulfilled. And the prophecy is linked again to this Emmanuel, is a sign linked to the specific dilemma of Ahaz. And basically, it tells him that this land would be deserted. And we know if there's anything that we know about northern part of Israel, it's very fruitful. It's just, farmland. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of just land that's really fertile. And things grow there. But here, Isaiah prophesies in a very direct way. If we go to Isaiah chapter 7, let's go there in verse 16. Isaiah chapter 7, verse 16, we'll see what God tells Ahaz. And it says, "For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that you dread will be forsaken by both her kings." The land will be abandoned. These two men will not even exist. And that's exactly what happened.
Interestingly enough, before the boy knows, oftentimes God does give us, even in his direction, a time period. He does give us signs. So this is if there's going to be a boy, before the boy knows. So we could if a child is born, when does a child begin to kind of know? 4 or 5. So it's actually a time limit. In a few years, in a relatively short period of time, something's going to happen.
That's right.
By human, we're impatient, aren't we? It's just a natural part of life, If you imagine if God came to you and told you, Sam Nunez, there's going to be a trial, and it's going to be about a day. Oh, a day? Give it to me, Lord. No problem. I can do a day. Sam, it's going to be a trial, but it's going to be about a week. Oh, a week, Lord? I can fast for a week. I've done it. No problem. Sam, there's going to be a trial, but it's going to be a month. With fasting and prayer and supplication, I can do a month. Sam, there's going to be a trial. It's going to be 10 years. Oh, hold on a minute. If you really knew how long it was going to last, would you be willing to do it? And a lot of us, honestly, there's an account of the woman with the issue of blood in the Bible that says it had been long years. She had exerted all of her money, and she now was a pauper and had been a wealthy woman and just dealing with this health issue for years and years. How long are we willing to hold on
upon the Lord?
To wait? And that was part of maybe Ahaz's problem here. It's not that we don't know God, and it's not that we haven't seen him work. We just don't want to wait.
That's right.
Impatient.
That's right.
We lose sight. And other voices, then we look for alternative methods to getting things done. There's other stories in the Bible about that. People didn't want to do it their way.
That's right. And the prophecy basically tells us also some of the other things besides time. It is going to take a little while before this happens, but wait upon me, is what God is saying. He says something here in verse 15, right before mentioning this child and how he would refuse the evil and choose the good. It says, curds and honey he shall eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. And this is tied in, I believe, with also verse 21. It shall be in that day that a man will keep alive a young cow and 2 sheep. So it shall be from the abundance of milk they give, that he will eat curds. For curds and honey everyone will eat who is left in the land. And the lesson was describing this, hey, there's going to be probably not all these other foods that are very common, but at least you'll have the food of the nomads at the time, yes?
In other words, you'll eat.
You'll eat.
And God is still good, isn't he?
He is good.
Even in the trials, even the
That's
long
right.
time, your bread and your water will be sure. I still got you.
That's right.
Again, that parent thing, Come on. Yeah, you're going to get wet. Yeah, your head may go into the water, but you're not going to die. I'm going to keep you. You're going to have, as a matter of fact, it said honey. So God can even, some sweetness, right? It's not going to all be bitter and just nourishing. There are going to be some good days in that trial also. It's a promise from him.
It is.
He's still our Father, and he still wants to take care of us.
That's right. And so this Sunday's lesson basically gives us the historical context when this happens and how the Assyrians basically did come. The lesson is very specific about Ahaz really didn't have to pay the Assyrians all that he paid. And we'll find out later on he's going to have to continue to pay them to keep them away from Jerusalem, but nothing like that's working. Basically, the Assyrians came, and by the year 734 through 733, they made all those territories, Syria and northern Israel, the northern kingdom, into their territory. It was basically now part of their provinces. And we find it in 2 Kings, in 1 Chronicles, that this actually happened. What God prophesied would happen, happened to the T.
To the T. You know what's exciting about God's word now is Google.
Okay.
If the average history lesson, you can literally go to Google and put in this king's name, and it's going to pop up stuff that's not biblical. You'll see that these kings,
history.
This stuff really happened and existed.
Yes.
And almost in the day, in the times that it said it would.
Yes.
So modern technology has gone a lot of way to make this book real.
That's
a lot of things that we even study. I remember studying some guys in school. And hold up, Attila the Hun, that rang a bell. What dynasty was, it begins to come alive and make sense. So God in this time has given us this great ability to actually check out his word, and it just keeps coming to be true.
Monday's lesson goes on by telling us some of the consequences that would come upon the land. And basically, Isaiah chapter 7, verses 17 all the way down to 25 are all these things that would happen. And I don't know if there was anything in this section that caught your attention. For me, one of the things that caught my attention was the description of Egypt being a fly and Assyria being a bee. And I don't know about flies, but we don't like flies, especially when they're just like, oh. And on the other side, bees, some of us are scared of being stung, and it's like, oh, not something good as well. And they would be in this basically dilemma between two nations. In fact, life is about being in basically a war.
Choices.
Yes, and choices we make.
Choices we
make. And
make.
God invites us to trust him. Not to trust the fly, not to trust the bee, but to put our trust in the creator of all things.
Right here in the lesson it says, it quotes from Prophets and Kings. It says, invitation upon invitation was sent to erring Israel to return to their allegiance to Jehovah. Isn't that us?
That's right.
God again, come on, jump. Just trust me. Over and over again. Invitation upon invitation was sent. Tender were the pleadings of the prophets. And as they stood before the people, earnestly exhorting to repentance and reformation, their words bore fruit to the glory of God. See, so there's two different things. There's conviction and there's conversion.
That's right.
Conviction is hearing it, knowing it, being aware of it, being able to recite the first 4, books of the Bible by heart because I know. But conversion
It's different.
It's acting on it.
It's acting on it.
How do you act on what you know? God is always there. And he always says the still small voice at the door knocking. But if you don't get up and go over there and open the door and then say, yes, Lord, come on in.
Yes. That's all we have to do.
This idea of choices.
Come on in.
And if people understand, to read this story, what was happening, Ahaz is the king, and he's worried about another group coming in and taking over his kingdom.
And sadly, he chose the wrong nation. Assyria was just after power, after land, after anything it could get its hands on. And sadly, Ahaz fell for it. He
made an allegiance. Our parents had always saying, when you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. So if you start this alliance, you're probably going to not realize, right?
That's right.
There's a cost that comes along with that. It's not going to work out the way you thought it was going to work out. So he went and started this allegiance with somebody else who the Lord told him to stay away from anyway.
That's right.
But in his impatience, he didn't want to wait on the Lord. He thought he could work it out better himself. He goes and makes this allegiance with this other king, who is a bloodthirsty, land-grabbing. He did what he always does. And he's a conqueror.
He's a conqueror. And basically, we read here in chapter 7 and verses 23, 24, it says, it shall happen in that day that wherever there could be 1,000 vines worth 1,000 shekels of silver, it will be for briars and thorns. Basically, if you think Ahaz things are bad, they're going to get really worse. It's going to get worse, exactly. And so again, invitation for us to not listen to all those voices out there. They're telling us, this is the way you should go, or this is what you should do. But the invitation is to trust God and to trust his prophets. Yes, Isaiah clearly was doing things and telling things that were happening already in Ahaz's time, and still he couldn't hear his voice.
Ahaz was stuck on. It says here, it quotes Psalms 118, verse 9, it is better to take refuge in the Lord than to put confidence in princes. And it reminded me of another one of my favorite, Jeremiah 12, verse 5. If running with the foot soldiers have made you weary, how are you going to contend with the horses? Ahaz, if you can't deal with these little problems, how are you going to deal with the big problems if you're not willing to trust me on the little things? To honestly say, to use some slang, I got you, man.
That's right. That's right.
I got you. Hey, haven't I had you before? So why would you... And that's the Lord, this constant plea. Why won't you trust again? I just keep seeing, I remember myself those days, standing in that pool, jump, jump, come on.
And so we find in chapter 8 of Isaiah, again, just a continuation of what would happen because they had put their trust in a foreign king, in a heathen king, basically, who did not believe in God.
No.
And somehow... Ahaz would suffer the consequences of this. And I would just like to invite you who are watching to open your Bibles to Isaiah chapter 8. This is the next part of our lesson. And we're going to read verses 1 through 4. And we'll start right there in verse 4. And it says, Moreover, the Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with a man's pen concerning Maher Shalal Hashbaz. Who's that?
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. And I will take for myself faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Jeberechiah. Then I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. Then the Lord said to me, call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz. For before the child shall have knowledge to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria will be taken away before the king of Assyria. And so here, God is once again reaching out to King Ahaz, reaching out to religious leaders as well, because we know that Uriah was the priest, and he wasn't a good priest, but he was going to witness what God was about to do. And also Zechariah, the son of Jeberechiah. And they were going to tell the king, look what God has told Isaiah. And Isaiah conceives a son, has a son, names him.
What the name he was supposed to name him.
Correct. And before he would say, Daddy, Mommy, which is one of the first words kids tell their parents, there would no longer be Israel and no longer be Assyria.
Things are going to change, and quickly, weren't they?
Quickly.
Because was God still giving him a chance? Doesn't God, this invitation that's standing at the door, Jesus will knock at the door a long time, won't he? He will. He doesn't knock 3 times and goes away. He pretty much just stands there and just this constant rapping on Ahaz's heart and mind, and still the hard way.
In fact, in his name, the name of the child, you have 2 words, swift and speedy. This is going to happen quickly.
Right.
Before you even take notice, it's going to happen. And sometimes God acts very quickly. Sometimes, like you said, he takes his time to answer some of our prayers, but we can trust him. In fact, we need to trust him and no one else.
No other way.
That's right.
But to trust him.
But to trust him. But there's a promise here as well. And we find the promises afterwards. Let's read 5 through 8 now. The Lord also spoke to me again, saying, inasmuch as these people refuse the waters of Shiloah that flow softly, and rejoice in Rezin and in Remaliah's son, now therefore, behold, the Lord brings up over them the waters of the river, strong and mighty, the king of Assyria and all his glory. He will go up over all his channels and go over all his banks. He will pass through Judah. He will overflow and pass over. He will reach up to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings will fill the breadth of your land. O Emmanuel.
In other words, Ahaz, if you do this, I'm telling you what's going to happen.
That's right.
The same guy,
You
remember being a kid, your parent ever tell you, he's not really your friend, Sam. Somebody you befriended, somebody, I don't think he's really good for you. Right. I wouldn't spend my time with that person, Even later in our lives, maybe dating. What your child really listened to, if you told your child, I don't think that's the right person for you to be dating. But mom, but dad, would you argue with them? But this is the Lord talking. If you do this, I'm telling you what's going to happen.
What's going to happen?
And it's not going to take long.
It won't. Judah, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Ahaz, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
And God's still saying, I am with you. Emmanuel, I am with you. Trust me. Make an alliance with me. And so we definitely see this happening, and how Ahaz and the kingdom of the south, Judah, were struggling in just a matter of time. Verses 9 and 10 tell us, be shattered, O you people, and be broken in pieces. Give ear, all from far countries. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, but it will come to nothing. Speak the word, but it will not stand. For Emmanuel,
again,
God is with us.
It's almost like we read this and, we can kind of be self-righteous, can't we? Oh, my goodness. Who would ignore that much exhortation? Come on, man. But then, to be honest, we all have, and we probably all still are. And that's the mercifulness. That's just the loving kindness of God to keep after us, to keep warning us, to keep holding us and taking care of us, even when we're just being hard-headed and doing it the hard way.
The hard way, that's right. And again, we just see how God tells his people what's going to happen, not because he wants them to suffer, not because he wants them to go through hard times, but again, if we make these bad choices, we can expect good things to happen.
Not all the time.
And so here we have, once again, God in a very merciful way telling Ahaz and all the people the things that would happen to them because they had made an alliance with Assyria.
The
wrong person. I like Wednesday's lesson. I don't know about you, but it really brought something out that I think we all struggle with, the word fear.
Even the title, Nothing to Fear When We Fear God.
There you go. And that's the message right there.
Again, jump into the pool. You have nothing to fear if you trust me.
Correct.
I'm already in the water. I'm already here. My hands are up. You don't have to fear the water. Don't look at the water.
That's right.
Look at me.
That's right.
Nothing to fear if we have God on our side. That's powerful.
And it's interesting when your kids were not obeying you and showing that they were not ready to trust you, you in a way felt disrespected.
Yeah.
Yes.
You fear the water more than me. You're right. Come on.
That's right. And here God is basically saying the same thing. Fear me, respect me, follow me, and you won't have to fear any of these nations that are surrounding you. You won't have to be afraid of any of the threats that they bring upon you.
It says here in the lesson, in one paragraph begins, God warned Isaiah not to fear what his people feared. See, it's nothing wrong with fear. By being human, there's nothing. Actually, I've had to learn to say it's okay to worry even. It's okay to be concerned. We're human. We have to be. There are bills to pay, and there are things, and there are children, and there are traffic, and all these things. But God is greater. The simplistic way to look at that, He already has the solution. And that's what he's trying to say to Isaiah here, I think. Yeah, it's okay to fear, but what are you going to fear more? What are you going to fear greater? Who are you going to have trust in? Yes, the water. People have drowned, and it's uncomfortable getting wet, but I got you. I got you.
And what we find is Jesus also tells us to his disciples. We find this in Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind.
And the next verse says, this is the first commandment.
Great commandment.
If you just keep me first, all these other things will work out.
That's right. Seek ye
Stay
first
focused. Look at me. I got you. That's this recurring theme of I got you. God is giving. I have you, man. Trust me.
I like what the lesson says here in Wednesday's it's part of the lesson. Fear God and give glory to him rather than fearing and giving glory to the earthly beast power described in Revelation 13. So this is really a message for us
today, most certainly.
Yes, this is found time and time again in the book of Revelation, and we have, many times heard about the first angel's message, fear God and give him glory. And if we truly fear God, we won't have to fear this beast power that will try to take away many things that we enjoy maybe today and won't be enjoying tomorrow. But we don't have to fear. We don't have to be worried. We don't even have to be anxious about anything, Paul tells us.
If we can. The lesson also says here, true fear of God as holy means that you recognize him as the ultimate power in the universe.
That's right.
It's not even a God of Maryland. He's not even a God of North America. No. This is small stuff. I'm keeping these billions of planets flying through the air without running into each other. I can deal with your mortgage payment, right?
Amen.
I can deal with the flat tire.
Amen.
Look at all this other stuff. That we're still a small microcosm. For us really to fear God is to understand who he is. The creator of all, so much bigger, so much greater than us anyway. My God is a great and powerful God.
Amen.
Not somebody on the shelf, not a stone that was carved, but he is keeping universes in control. Therefore, he has me in it.
And I want to read one more text here. And there's a text that seems to contradict this idea of fearing God.
Okay.
And it's found in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, and it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear. Because fear involves torment, but he who fears has not been made perfect in love.
Fear as apprehension versus fear as reverence. Fear of the bully at school because he might beat you up but fear of what's going to happen when your big brother shows up to deal with the bully, right?
Yes.
That's a fear too. You don't know what's coming. Hold on,
right.
big brother, they're here busting me, man. I'll be right there. Now, you're going to get to experience a different kind of fear. See, because now my brother's not going to hurt me. Bad things are about to happen, but not to me. Right? There's still fear. So that's the difference between the apprehension of what might happen to me, but the power that he can exert over a whole situation. It's still action going to be taking place. There's still power to be exerted, but who's going to receive it and who's going to benefit from it? Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And I think this is exactly what God is telling us in his word is he wants us to pay him homage, reverence. He wants us to respect his word, respect specifically his law, and take it seriously, not just like it's anybody's word. No, this is God of the universe, as you shared, speaking to us human beings, inviting us into a relationship, a covenant relationship. And that covenant relationship means we can't make covenants with others.
I've got the power here.
That's right. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's just a lot of fear. A lot of fear out there in the internet today, the news. They just pour fear. And what's the antidote for all that fear? It's God. It's coming to him, depending on him.
Believing him. Even in politics, I'm not really a big politic follower because he says, I bring them up and I take them down. We remember to apply it to politics, there was a king who was king one day, and there was some fingers written, this, in a few hours, you won't be king anymore anyway. So whoever is king, whoever's the leader, serves at the bequest, right? Just like when you get a new job and you serve. We can hire you and fire you anytime I want. Right. There were a bunch of leaders once when Samson went into the temple. They're up there partying, having a good time, and he pushed the foundation out, and all of them died. The building fell in on top of them. There is not one single person walking the face of this earth that God is still not in His grace and mercy. Which one of us keeps our hearts beating? I don't have to worry about the leaders. I do my diligent part. I want to be an honest, good citizen, but I can't worry about or get myself wrapped up in leadership because I know who the real leader is.
Amen.
Anyway,
Jesus.
He can bring them up, and in the next hour, you've been weighed in the balance. You're not the leader anymore. Goodbye. There's another leader who was leader, and a few hours later, he's in the field eating grass. You know what I mean? So we don't have to worry about leaders. This book is full, chock full of evidence that God
continues to be in control.
He's the leader.
He's the leader.
And when you think you're the leader, that's when oftentimes you go the wrong way. Back to Ahaz. When you think you're in control, when you think you have to do it,
it doesn't work.
It usually doesn't work.
And we find a few verses here as to the end of this king. It was a sad ending. And maybe we could go there. It's Thursday's lesson. And we find it in chapter 8, verses 16 through 22. I'll read it really quick, and then we can discuss these passages here. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. And I will wait on the Lord, who hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will hope in him. I want to stop right there. This is Isaiah speaking and saying, I will wait on the Lord. On the Lord who definitely, it seems like he's hiding his face from the house of Jacob. And speaking to a friend of mine who is of the Jewish faith, she said that this is some of the most scariest language that they find in both the law, which is the book of Deuteronomy, and also the prophets, is when God hides his face from his people. And here Isaiah recognizes, oh boy, we are in deep trouble. God is turning his face from us because of what we're doing. And it was some abominable things that they were doing, including sacrifice of children, including as we will read on, talking to the dead, witchcraft, idolatry, you name it was happening among God's people. And here Isaiah says, I will hope in him.
Still.
Still.
And the lesson kind of gets good now, doesn't it? How did Ahaz get in this situation? How is Ahaz the king, the leader, from a line of believers? How did he get so far off track? By hanging out with the wrong people, becoming impatient. But the big part of this, it is this idea that we're really studying now, when it talks about gloom of the ungrateful living dead, the occult, and who you're going to believe when he came into this land. How do you get to worship other gods? Pastor, how long do you think that serpent spoke to Eve? Did he get her in the first 2 seconds? Or was there a conversation? And why didn't you just walk away at first? Snake, oh, and go the other way. If you entertain it,
That's the
if you
problem.
have the conversation, if you keep listening, if you start nitpicking the good, the bad, well, it's not really that bad, and a little bit, my mother again said, a little bit of poison will kill you, right? You know, how much poison do you have to take? But the compromise. Ahaz began to compromise and affiliate with people definitively not of God. That was the pattern that we see in Thursday's lesson. So let's delve into that one.
Let's
good
go
stuff.
there. I'll just read verse 18. That's also tied with verse 17. Here am I, says Isaiah, and the children whom the Lord has given me. We are for signs and wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts who dwells in Mount Zion. So basically his children and himself, they were witness of what God was trying to tell his people, and yet they were not listening.
They knew.
They knew.
But whatever the but is, but. Well, 19 gives us the but, doesn't it?
It does. And this is what is happening. And when they say to you, seek those who are mediums and wizards, who whisper and mutter, should not a people seek their God? Should they seek the dead on behalf of the living? To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Clear.
He started playing around with what God told him not to play around with.
Correct.
And in this instance, with Isaiah giving, when you go into the land of these other people around, don't do what they do. They're not my people.
That's right.
They don't know. Now, the interesting part is, these people at this time are still who? Descendants of Noah. After the flood, Noah and his family, they split up and they migrated to different spots. And just like the whole history of our earth, there have always been those who follow God's way and those who don't. Really, it's the two sides, isn't it?
That's right. It is.
Those who follow God's guidance, teaching his way, and those who don't. Pagans who didn't, and those who did. So what we have here is he's coming to a group of people who still believe in that you can speak to the dead. Who do whatever it was that God said don't do. That's who they are. So is there any wonder that they're doing what they're doing? And Ahaz started asking them for help. Started saying, well, you know, looking at their victories, saying, well, maybe, what God are you praying to? Well, maybe that God will help me in this situation. Oh, you're offering sacrifices to the dead. Maybe I could get some counseling from the dead.
Not a good idea. In fact, hasn't changed much, has it?
Hasn't.
Today,
Directly what God told him not. No, back to the tree. That's what he said. That's what he asked Eve. Don't worry about it. You can do this. You will not die. The first lie is the same lie till today.
And
There's
Ahaz
no
fell
death.
for it. Ahaz fell for it, and he made really bad alliances, bad decisions. Verse 21 tells us they will pass through it, hard-pressed and hungry, and it shall happen when they are hungry that they will be enraged and curse their king and their God and look upward. So basically he's telling them the people will come against you. All those you.
If you do this.
If you do this.
If you follow what these other people do, your own people. Then the lesson, Ahaz was deeply involved in pagan religion. He got involved, in pagan religion. As one of says, 2 Kings 16:3, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. He even burned his son as an offering. Child sacrifice, according to the despicable practices of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people. Why would you do what they did? And of all the most despicable, horrible things, now you're going to start following the pagans rather than me?
It's sad, a sad situation that continues on until today.
And today,
Until today, people are listening to all these different voices and not wanting to hear the voice of God that clearly speaks to us through His Word and above all through Jesus Christ. And I think this is an important lesson. I am glad we were able to study these two chapters together because it's what we're experiencing today in our world. A world that definitely does not believe in God, does not trust in God, does not trust in His Word, and are going their own way. And we sometimes look at what's happening around us, and it's tempting sometimes to follow, where all these people are going, but we're invited not to. We're invited to trust God's Word. We're invited to put it into practice. And putting it into practice means sometimes stepping out without seeing, hey, how is this going to work? And how is this going to end? But God tells us the end from the beginning, and it's a beautiful end.
To what you just said, we're human beings and naturally inquisitive. We want to know the future. So this idea of consulting mediums, people who can tell you what the future is. Pastor, on the drive here, I passed 3 or 4 establishments. You drive by and they have the red signs out with the palm reading, tarot card reading. And it's amazing. I said, I suddenly see cars just really pulling in there. How do they make a living? How does this work to go in and pay this person to tell you what the future is? And you'd imagine their businesses probably wouldn't be very successful if you went in and paid someone to tell you, I see death in your future. I don't want to hear that, But today we're getting very, we want to hear the good stuff.
That's right.
Right? And that's what Ahaz. He didn't like what the Lord was going to tell him. So he got involved in this medium, this whole idea of wanting someone to tell us what is going to happen,
And we want to just learn from these lessons so that we won't repeat them. Yes? And learn that God does have a plan and that God is our hope, as Isaiah tells us that he put his trust in God. And I know that our time is running out, but maybe a few thoughts, just concluding thoughts regarding this lesson. What's your big takeaway, Wayne, regarding hearing God's voice or hearing other voices? What's your big takeaway from this week's lesson?
I keep seeing this pool scene in my mind.
Okay.
Who are you going to believe? Who are you going to trust? Who are you going to trust? I got you to recognize my Father's voice. And the biggest evidence of this, He brought me this far. Haven't I kept you in the past?
Amen.
Even the parent trying to get the child to jump into the pool. Don't you know who I am? Have I let you down before? Would I let you drown now?
No.
Trust me.
Trust me. And I think that's key right there, that God is our Heavenly Father. And we are His children. In fact, He did the most amazing thing by sending His only Son to give His life for each one of us. And if He did that, He's going to take care of us.
I have the other things. You don't need to consult anybody else, mediums, all those guys. Stone them. Don't even keep them around because they're going to distract you. Just keep your eye on me. I got you.
And that's a beautiful lesson that we can take away from this week's lesson. The summary on Friday basically says, through Isaiah's action and family, as well as his words, God reinforced the message of warning and hope. The only safe course is to trust that God knows what He is doing. He has both the love, the power to guide, protect, and provide for those who let Him. For those who turn to other powers, there is only gloom. That's the message.
It's no plainer than that.
It's
For
no
those
plainer
who
than that.
let Him,
Let
you've got to let Him. You've got to give it to Him and allow Him. Listen and allow Him.
Amen.
Over time, it might not be immediate, but He will take care of you. He's going to catch you when you jump,
Amen.
right?
He will.
Might get a little wet, but he's going to catch you.
He will. And so we want to conclude our lesson study with a word of prayer. And after our word of prayer, we're going to listen to Elder Ted Wilson sharing with us a very important message. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this opportunity to study your word. And Father, we thank you for the opportunity once again to open your word to the words that you shared with your servant, the prophet Isaiah, in chapters 7 and 8. And Father, we thank you again that you invite us all to remember Emmanuel. God is with us in the good times and in the bad times. You promise to be with us. And Father, may we put our trust in you. May we follow you wherever you lead us. And may we put aside anything that will distract us from being connected to you. We give you the praise and the glory for anything good that happens in our life. We give you the praise and the glory when also challenging times come our way. But may we never forget that you continue to be with us. We ask your blessing upon all those who are watching, and we thank you in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.